Are you tired from learning from a textbook or a PowerPoint? Well, let's try something new. How about we learn about the basic principles of economics using a video game? Let's check it out. So today we're looking at the massive multiplayer online video game Maplestory and its market features online. We are using this because it is a multiplayer game and there are players that sell and buy goods and services. What is a good? A good is something like an item that people have that they can sell to others. For example, in a video game, it might be pieces of equipment that people might want to buy from another player. What is a service? A service is something that a player can offer to another player. And this is how it all comes around. Now, these goods and services are transferred via bartering or the exchange of money. This is called trade. One player might have an item that another player wants, and they might trade items for it, or they could pay in currency and money. Now, let's discuss money. What is money? Money is anything that represents a form of value. In this game, there's this currency called Meso, which is a form of money. Players use it to buy products and goods and services from other players. Now, people can sell goods and services personally or through a market in the game. Let's check it out. It's called the auction house. And here we can see we have items listed and the price for said items. The market is very simple. Players have goods that they want to sell and they put a price on it. And they put it onto the market, and the other player who wants that item will pay money for it, and a little bit of the fee will be paid as a transaction fee to the market. The seller has control about how much money they want to sell an item for. The buyer has the ability to choose how much he wants to pay for an item and whether he wants it or not. And this is where supply and demand comes in. Supply is how much supply of a good or service there is, and demand is how much people want said good or service. If the item is in high demand but low in supply, it might become really expensive. Let's look up an item that might have high demand and low supply. There's only one of this item, and it costs 9 billion Meso. Because this is in such high demand but low supply, it costs more. Now, let's look at the other way around. If something is super common in supply but very low in demand, it's practically worthless and won't sell for anything. Let's look at these gloves compared to earlier. They sold for 1 million compared to that 10 billion that we saw earlier. High in supply and extremely low in demand. Now let's look at something that is both extremely high in supply and extremely high in demand. This is called, in this game we have an item called a spell trace. Everyone needs this item, but because it's in such high supply, it's extremely cheap. But because it's in such high demand, people will still buy it for a cheap price, and as you can see, they tend to buy in bulk. Now, this is where market economics comes in. As a seller and a buyer, you have to understand the idea of supply and demand. It will determine how much you decide to put your prices for and how much you will gain from a market. How much should the seller attempt to sell the price for? Is his item good enough quality that he might bring it above the market price? Or maybe he undercuts so the buyers might feel more incentivized to buy a cheaper item. Now, let's look at something called equilibrium. Equilibrium is the point where supply and demand meet. If we look for a generic item, we can see equilibrium as shown. Let me just look something up real quick. Sorry about that. Looks like I am just really bad at finding things. Let's find these Trickster Warrior pants. The average market price for this item seems to be around 50 to 60 million meso. And now, of course, the more expensive items are higher quality goods. Just like in real life, there are lower quality goods and higher quality goods. But equilibrium determines the point where just the basic good and its market value, where the supply and demand meet, becomes the equilibrium point. We could call it the market price. And now, you see, the price is averaging around 50 million to 60 million. However, this one person is trying to sell theirs for 48 million. They are trying to undercut. However, because we understand market economics, we know that this is not a necessary thing to do, because people would still be willing to buy for 50 million. Therefore, it depends on how much a seller wants its money and how much value undercutting truly gives the seller. Now that you guys know a little bit more about this, maybe it'll help you guys out in the future. Now, let's talk a little bit more about money in general. In the real world, we have something called inflation, where money starts to slowly lose its value over time. And we see inflation in this video game economy as well, because as you can see, the first item that I showed, you might remember, cost 10 billion meso. I only have 322 million. That seems like a lot, however, because in this game there is no government that limits the printing of money. Money just slowly be racked up as wealth over time, and especially in video games, massive inflation happens. This is what happens when a government can not regulate the printing of their money, and soon buckets and buckets of money just go to complete waste. And now, just remember, economics isn't scary. It's not meant to be something that you're afraid of. Economics helps us, not only in video games, make more money, but it helps us in real life decide how we want to go around making financial decisions. And I hope this helped you guys today, and I hope you guys had fun. Thank you guys, see you later.